Hi, I'm Bettina Taylor. I work at the BUND Marine Protection Office, and the BUND is a member of Coalition Clean Baltic of CCB. Today we will talk about the problem of underwater noise. Underwater noise is noise that comes from human activities and is underwater, so in the ocean mainly. It can also be in rivers or lakes, of course. And we can distinguish here between sound and noise. So sound is what is naturally in the oceans. The oceans are not silent areas. There's actually a lot of sound going on from waves, from animals communicating, underwater earthquakes, and so on. But the noise is what we put in as with our human activities. And that is basically the problem, because it's on top of what is naturally there. And it can be very different depending on the human activity, which can be very diverse. So there's, for example, continuous sound from ships, which are more one sound level, that just the ship passing, depending on how big, how fast the ship is. This can be very different. And then there's also a very sudden or impulsive noise that can come from detonations, for example, when ammunition is exploded underwater. It can come from pile driving when wind parks are built. It can come from seismic surveys, from air guns that are used to detect oil and gas in the ground. So these are all different types of underwater noise that are put in by human activities. Well, we all know about noise. We know about noise in our lives. Noise can be stressful. Noise can even hurt our ears if it's very loud. We know the effect of what it can do to us in our lives when there's a lot of noise, continuous noise, and so on. And the same happens in the oceans. The threat can be very different depending on the type of noise. I was saying earlier, there's continuous noise, there's sudden impulsive noise. It depends how loud it is, how far the animal is from the sound source, and so on. So the threats to the animals are also very diverse. They can go from just stressing the animal, which can also result in very wrong behavior that might even threaten their lives. It can mask their own noises. So, for example, marine mammals like harbor porpoises will orientate themselves in the ocean with sounds that they're making. They will communicate with each other with these sounds. They try to find their prey with these sounds. And if the noise that is put in is louder than their own, then it will mask it. They will not be able to hunt to find their calves or their mothers, for example. And it can disturb them, but it could, even if the animal is very close to the sound source, also cause death through physical injury. For example, an underwater detonation, or these very loud seismic air guns can also kill very small animals. Fish eggs don't develop very well in a very noisy environment. And so the threats to the marine life are very different, and they can also be very short-term, very long-term. We don't even know enough yet about the really long-term effects. There are some surveys that say that a long-term stress through noise, even if it's only very low, can affect the amount of offspring that marine mammals can have, and so on. So it is a big threat to the environment and to the marine animals. Again, what we can do depends on the type of noise, of course. The good thing about noise is that it doesn't linger, like, for example, some other chemical pollutants or plastics. Once they're in the environment, it's difficult to take them out. If you stop the noise, you stop the problem. So it's actually something that can, in a way, easily be stopped. So for ships, for example, one way is to reduce the speed. Very often, not always, but very often, a slower ship will be less noisy. So that would be one type of measure, that we reduce the speed of ships in certain areas where animals are that are noise sensitive. Rerouting might also be something, that ships might not be allowed in certain areas. For impulsive noise, it's different. One main thing, and the best thing, of course, would be to avoid it. If we can avoid to have an underwater explosion, if, for example, this old ammunition that needs to be taken out can actually be taken out of the environment and exploded on land, or detonated, or whatever we need to do with it, then we would avoid it. If we can't avoid the impulsive noise, then we should mitigate the sounds. We should use some type of noise mitigation measures that are also out there. You can, for example, put a curtain of bubbles around a pile that is driven into the ground with a massive hammer that is also very loud. So there are mitigation measures, but there are also many types of noise that could be avoided. Seismic surveys, for example, that are extremely loud, the air guns. We are really at the end of the age of fossil fuels. We should be there, that we're reducing this and not going out there and trying to find more oil and gas. So this is something that should really be banned. We shouldn't have seismic surveys anymore. That would also avoid the type of noise. So what we need really are measures that reduce the noise right now, and they are possible. We know enough to act there. There's always more we can study, we can look at, and there are always gaps, of course, but we know enough to act, and we have to do it now to reduce the underwater noise.